John Skene, Lord Curriehill. Sir John Skene, Lord Curriehill 1549–1617, was a Scottish prosecutor, ambassador, and judge. He was involved in the negotiations for the marriage of James VI and Anne of Denmark. He was regent in St Mary's College, St Andrews from 1564 to 1565, and became an advocate in 1575. Life. He was born in 1549. He was the sixth son of James Skene of Wester Corsby 1505 and Janet Lumsden. The physician Gilbert Skene was an elder brother. Their lands were at Bandundle or Wester Course, a manor in Aberdeenshire. In his own writings he mentions his travels, describing the appearance of a travelling salesman in Krakow in 1569. The writer Thomas Dempster mentions Skene's travels in the countries of northern Europe and his fluency in their languages. James Melville of Halhill said he could give long speeches in Latin, and was good, true, and stout. Skene enrolled or matriculated at the University of Wittenberg on 16 March 1570. Skene's career was advanced by the marriages of his sisters to Alexander Hay, Lord Clerk Register, and Lord Blantyre, an exchequer official and one of the Octavians. As joint Lord Advocate from 1589 to 1594, he was zealous in the prosecution of witches. He was appointed Lord Clerk Register and Lord of Session, with the judicial title of Lord Curriehill in 1594, serving until 1611. Denmark and the royal marriage. As a diplomat, Skene went to Denmark to seek an agreement over rights to Orkney, and presented a memorandum on that topic to Sophie of Mecklenburg-Güstrow and the four regents of Christian Roman IV of Denmark at Helsingør on 20 August 1589. He was also given instructions to negotiate the terms of the royal marriage. His companions were George Keith, 5th Earl Marischal, Andrew Keith, James Scrimgeour of Duthope, the Constable of Tay and Standard-bearer of Scotland, and George Young. He returned on to Scotland 23 July 1589. An English observer, Thomas Fowler, reported their news, including the Danish opinion that James VI asked for too high a dowry, but they had seen extensive preparations for the marriage, including a coach made of silver. According to their report, Anne of Denmark was keen for the marriage to go ahead, and Fowler wrote, "The young lady is so far in love with the King's Majesty as it were death to her to have it broken off, and has made good proof in divers ways of her affection, which his Majesty is apt enough to requite." On 22 October 1589, he accompanied James VI on his voyage from Leith to Norway and Denmark to meet his wife Anne of Denmark, and attended the meeting of the Privy Council of Scotland at Oslo on 25 November. James VI had given Anne of Denmark a morning gift of lands and palaces. In the week before her coronation in Scotland, the Danish ambassadors travelled to view these places and take formal possession. On 12 May 1589, the envoys were welcomed at Falkland Palace by the keeper, James Beaton of Crike. Skene produced a printed charter of the Queen's lands in Fife, and as a traditional symbol of the transfer of ownership Sassine, the Danish Admiral Peder Munch was given a handful of earth. After this ceremony, the party rode to the new house of Lochleven Castle to stay the night, then repeated the ritual at Dunfermline Palace, and on 14 May at Linlithgow Palace. Germany, Germany, Germany. In June 1590, James VI of Scotland sent Skene and Colonel William Stewart, Commendator of Pittenweem, with John Geddy as secretary, as ambassadors to Denmark and Germany. The mission was intended to cement a peaceful league in Europe. They met the mother of Anne of Denmark, Sophie of Mecklenburg-Güstrow, at Braunschweig, then went on to meet William Roman IV, Landgrave of Hesse Castle at Rothenburg, and Der Fulda and Christian I, Elector of Saxony, at Dresden, and Joachim Frederick, son of the Elector of Brandenburg, at Potsdam. Skene was ill when he returned to Edinburgh. James VI gave his wife Helen Somerville £333 of the English subsidy money around this time. On 27 1590 November, Edinburgh Town Council made his cook, John Lillo, a burgess, for free at his request. He served as ambassador to Holland from 1591. In April 1597 he wrote to the secretary and joked about the expense connected with 30 deer sent from England for the park of Falkland Palace, as deer of that ilk. He said he had gout or podagra. James VI was hunting at Hatton House in West Lothian with Sir James McAneil. Another James McAneil alias McSorley was to be knighted, possibly with the designation of Inchgarvie. They were grandsons of Sorley boy MacDonnell. Regiam Majestam. His compilation of Old Scots law Regiam Majestatum is a source of the laws of Scotland previous to James I. He was granted a pension by Regent Morton for preparing a digest of laws. He also produced a Scots law dictionary, De Verborum Signification. According to the Dictionary of National Biography, in 1592 he was named one of a commission to examine the laws and acts of Parliament, and to consider which of them should be printed, and he was finally entrusted with the preparation of the work. It was published by Robert Waldegrave on 15 May 1597, under the title The Laws and Acts of Parliament. Later life. In 1604 he bought the lands of Curriehill Castle. Curriehill is north of Currie, a village to south of Edinburgh. He took Lord Curriehill as his title. He is buried in Greyfriars Kirkyard in Edinburgh. His memorial stands on the north face of the church. An account of an Embassie, 1590. John Skene wrote an account of his embassy to Denmark in 1590, known from a copy made by the antiquary Robert Milne. This is in the form of a journal of events. Skene left Edinburgh with William Stewart on 9 June 1590 and rode to Berwick-upon-Tweed and on to London. Their secretary John Getty spoke to William Cecil to arrange an audience with Elizabeth I of England at Greenwich Palace. On 17 June they came to court again and spoke to Christopher Hatton the Chancellor, the Treasurer Cecil, the Admiral Lord Cobham, and Lord Buckhurst. They also spoke to the French ambassador Jean de Laffin, Seigneur de Beauvoir-la-Nacle. They embarked on the George Noble at Leon Sea, and after some difficulty sailed to Heligoland and stayed, then crossed the Elbe into Holstein. On his return in London, they stayed at an inn on Gracechurch Street. Skene got an appointment with William Cecil, who received him lying on his bed at Cecil House, because he was old and weary. Skene told him details of his negotiations in Denmark, Germany, and the Low Countries. The next day he went with Cecil to Somerset House and waited in the Chamber of Presence until the Queen came out at 11 o'clock on her way to Richmond Palace. Skene then went to York House in Westminster and met the French ambassadors Beauvais and Henry de la Tour, Viscount of Turin. Family. He was married to Helen Somerville of Cambusnethan. Their children included Catherine Skene, who married Alexander Hay, Lord Foster Seat; Jane Skene, who married Sir William Scott of Ardross. Their daughter Euphemia Scott married William Cochrane and was Countess of Dundonald. Euphemia Skene married Sir Robert Richardson of Pencaitland. Margaret Skene married Robert Learmonth, a son of George Learmonth of Balcombe. James Skene, Lord Curriehill d. 15 October 1633, who married Janet Johnston. John Skene of Halyards. Alexander Skene, who married Jontosins. Their son John Skene was keeper of the Register of Hornings. William Skene.